Hello, fourth year students. Today we are going to talk about the second type of testing techniques, which is the subjective technique. So you remember we classified the testing items that we can use in order to make a communicative test for our students depending on two criteria. Either we classify them depending on the answer that we expect from our students to supply, and here we are having two types, either selective or supply answers. Okay, or we can classify the testing items according to the method that the teacher is going to follow in scoring these testing items. And here we are again having two types of items, and they are subjective and objective. We talked previously about the objective testing items, their types, their advantages and disadvantages, and it is time now to talk about the subjective ones. So the first type of testing items, specifically the subjective ones, are the close or gap fill items. Okay, it is so important to distinguish between these two types of testing items. That's why we are going to say that in gap fill questions, teachers normally choose the words that should be deleted. Okay, so the teacher, if he wants to make or she wants to make a gap fill question, he or she is going to choose a certain word from the sentence to be deleted. Okay, and the students now job is to put or restore this word, or to know that this is the word that has been deleted from the sentence. Okay, whereas in the close items, words are deleted systematically. What does it mean that words are deleted systematically? It means that the teacher who is going to put a close question has to count the number of words, okay, and then delete, and depending on the number, he's going to make the deletion. So they say that in the conventional close test, they usually remove the sixth word or the eighth word. Okay, so they count the number in each sentence. They start from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so when they arrive to the number 5 or 6 or 7 or 8, they can delete this word, and then it is going to be the job of the student to know which word or what is the word that has been deleted. And of course, this is going to be repeated in all the passage. And this is again another difference between the gap fill and the close test. In the gap fill, usually we are having individual sentences, but in the close test, we should have a passage, okay, a complete text. So as you see, the close testing items have been originated in the 1950s, and they were specifically designed to test reading comprehension. So as we said, the teacher should provide his students or her students with a passage in which there are certain words that have been deleted from the passage. So what is the job of the student here? The students have to read the passage carefully, try to understand it, although it is missing some elements. Okay, try to understand the meaning, try to understand the structures used, and consequently, or depending on their understanding, they should be able to use or to fill the blanks, okay, in in this passage with the missing words. So to do this, the students, as we said, have to read around the gap. Okay, have to read what is before the gap and what is after the gap in order to understand, as we said, the meaning and the structure in order to arrive at the correct answer. Although these items were designed primarily, okay, to test reading comprehension, and they are until now used to test reading comprehension, but still they can be used to test other items or skills in language. So what we have, what is called rational deletion clause. What does mean rational deletion clause? This type of a clause testing item can be used to test specific categories of words. Okay, for example, when you want to test prepositions, or you have to delete what the prepositions, only the prepositions from what, from the passage. Or when you want to test, for instance, tenses, so you have to delete what, you have to delete the verbs that show different tenses, and so on. So as you see here, the clause testing items have been primarily designed to test what reading comprehension, but with the course of time, they were developed to be able to be used in design in testing other components and skills in language. You see an example of a clause test in which the reading comprehension is tested. As you see here, this is a text in the form of an email or a letter written by a friend, one friend to another, and you see here there are blanks in this text or in this passage or in this email. These blanks represent what that, or they show what, they show that there are missing words. Okay, so when you as a teacher give such a passage or such a text for your students in the test, they have to do what? They have, first of all, to read the passage, the text carefully, try to understand, okay, what is before and after each blank in order to understand, as we said, both meaning and structure, in order to know what the, or to guess or to find out the missing words. Here, as we said, we are testing mainly what? Reading comprehension, because if you try to work this text out, you can see that it mainly depends on what? On understanding the missing words, and knowing or discovering or finding out the missing words mainly depend on what? Depends on understanding, okay, reading and understanding. So here we are testing reading comprehension. This is another example of a clause item test in which you see here the teacher has designed it to test certain functions, okay, in language. So as you see in number one, in blank number one, we have choices, we have options. The teacher has given options, and all of them, they are what? Prepositions. So here the teacher aims to test what? The preposition. While if you go to blank number two, you see that the options lived, lives, and living, they are what? They are verbs in different tenses. Okay, so he is now testing tenses, and so on. So what do we call this? Such a type of clause test, we call it rational deletion, in which the specific categories of words have been deleted for the purpose of assessment. So here we are not mainly after reading comprehension, but we are after testing things related to mainly to grammar. If we go back to the gap fill items, if you remember, we said that in gap fill items, mainly the questions, such questions can include what individual sentences in which in each of these sentences there is what a word or a phrase that has been deleted and replaced by a blank. So what is the student's task here? The student is or job or what is required from the student here is to fill in this blank with the missing word or phrase. And here we are testing what? Okay, are we testing meaning? Are we testing grammar, reading comprehension, vocabulary, or what? Harrison in 1983 identifies two types of gap fill items. Okay, throughout these two tabs, you can know or recognize that these gap fill items, in fact, can be used to either test grammatical words or function words like prepositions, articles, conjunctions, okay, or you can have what semantic gaps in which you are testing what vocabulary, nouns, adjectives, verbs, and adverbs. Okay? So, as you see here from these examples, example number 1, here, this is a gap fill item. As you see, it is in the form of a statement, and one of the elements in this statement has been deleted by the teacher and replaced by a blank in order to ask the student now to find out what is missing. What is the word that has been deleted from the sentence? The teacher here has given his students 4 options, A, B, C, and D. If you read these options, you can see that they are all what? Adjectives. Okay, and here this means that we are having what kind of gap fill items? We are having semantic gaps, in which the teacher is testing the meaning of this of the words. Okay, but if you go to example number 2, you see that here again we are having an incomplete sentence with a blank, and the students here has to use the word between brackets in the correct tense. Here we are having what? We are having function gaps, because here we are testing what? Something related to grammar, which is tense. Okay. The other types of the subjective testing techniques in language are the short answer or completion items. So short answer or sentence completion items ask students to answer in a few words, phrases, or sentences. Okay, so here in the short answer question, you are asking your students in a form of a question, either a WH question or a yes/no question, and here the students have to answer such a question by using or by providing you with what? With a short sentence. Okay, so the short answer questions are usually or most commonly used to test what? Reading and listening comprehension. For instance, a teacher has given his students a passage, okay, and under the passage there is a question that includes a number of WH questions about the information that they have read in the passage. For example, this is one of the questions. For example, why did Karen become interested in photography? So you see, this is what? This is a WH question to which the students should respond in a form of a short sentence. Or a completion item. What does it mean? Again, a completion item. Here, again, we are having a sentence that or whose one of its elements has been deleted and replaced by a blank, and here the students have to know how to complete, or which word that they should use in order to complete this sentence. Again, This is again depending either if you are testing, depending on the knowledge that they have, if you are testing vocabulary, or if you are testing, it may depend on their understanding if you are testing listening or reading comprehension. If we come to talk about the advantages of the short answer and completion items, we can see that they encourage students to learn and know the answer rather than just recognize it. So they are what? Productive items. Okay, so they are different from the objective techniques of testing. That if you remember, the multiple choice test, the true false test, the matching test, because in these objective tests, students were mainly recognizing the answers. Okay, but when we come to these techniques, the subjective items, the close items, the completion items, the short answer items, here the students, they are going to provide you with their answer. Okay, they are going to produce language in order to answer the question. Because the students must produce the answer, there is less guessing. So guessing is found where? In which types of questions? In the objective, but not in the subjective. They are easy to construct. Okay, unlike again the objective test. If you remember, we said the objective techniques, they are difficult and time consuming in constructing. But if we come to the subjective items, like the short answer items, the completion, the close items, the close items, they are what? Easy to construct, to make, to prepare. They are especially good for checking gist, intensive understanding of a text, and who, what, where, and when content. So throughout such questions, you can measure or test your students' understanding of what they have been reading or what they have listened to. They can test higher order thinking skills. Okay, so throughout these questions, you are not only testing recognition, you are testing the production of language, you are testing the ability of your students to think, okay, to analyze, to summarize, to criticize, and so on. But what about the disadvantages? Okay, the disadvantages of these questions, they are, number one, responding to these items may take long time, because here the students need to think, okay, and then produce the language. Think of the answer and then produce the language and check their language and all. Okay, after they write or produce their answer, they have to check it in order to make sure if it is whether it is correct or not. So this will take a long time from the student to answer one item only or one point in the question. That's why you have to do what? To reduce, okay, to the number of such items in your test. Unlike what? The objective items, if you remember. In the objective items, they answering them because it depends on only selecting the correct answer. Okay, so here the student will not take much time in answering such questions. So in order to make sure that these items are reliable, you have to make as many as objective items. But when we come to the subjective items, no. Subjective items, because they require producing language, thinking and producing the language, here taking much time will oblige the teacher to lessen or decrease the number of these items in the test. Number two, producing language to answer may discourage rote memorization. At this point can be what? Good and bad at the same time. So rote memorization means what? Students usually they learn things by memorization, by repetition. So not all the times memorization is good, and not all the times memorization is not good. Okay, so if you use such items, they say that if you use such items in your test, here you are encouraging as students, if you remember, we said this in the advantages, to what? To depend on their understanding, okay, and to analyze and think of the correct answer. Okay, so here it is better not to use these types of questions in testing what? In testing facts, because learning facts mainly depends on what? Depends on memorization. Number three, time consuming in scoring. Okay, so remember we said in the advantages of these testing items, they are what? They are easy to construct, but uh, on the contrary of this, we are going to say that they are what? They are time consuming. They take that in what? They are time consuming in scoring. They need much time and effort on the part of the teacher in scoring each answer of each student, especially if you are having a large number of students. Subjective scoring, remember, we call these items subjective. Why? Because they are what? Because they are corrected or marked or graded depending on the subjective interpretation of the teacher. So, subjective scoring can cause problems in reliability, whether we are talking about inter-rater reliability or intra-rater reliability. And I think that you know the difference between the two. Okay, so what are the tips that we can provide or give for language teachers in order to help them write good short answer or completion items? In fact, there are two tips. Number one, there should be only one short, concise answer. So make questions that require short answers. Why? Because writing a short answer will not take so much time on the part of the students to answer, and at the same time will not take so much time on the part of the teacher to score or to grade these answers. Okay? Number two, allow for partial credit, which means you have to read the answer of your students carefully, word by word, and try to make them or to consider the parts that they are correct, okay, and give their scores depending on that. So if you do not say that or you do not put 0 just because the answer is incomplete, or just because there is something that is wrong, or there is a mistake in the answer. No. Here, the major goal of testing or assessment is what? Is to give your student credit for what they know. They may start the answer correctly, but then they may what? They may commit a mistake, or they may forget. So do not punish them by giving them 0 for the part that they have forgotten. Or the student, they know the answers, but they may commit a mistake in what? The spelling. So here you should not punish them for the spelling mistakes as long as you can read, you can decipher the word, although that it was written or it was misspelled. Okay, this is called what? This is called partial credit. Now we come to the second type of the objective, or sorry, the last type of the subjective questions, which is what? The essay, writing essay questions. Okay, so you know that essays or writing an essay is a subjective test in which we ask our students to write an essay about a specific topic. And I think that you have studied or in the third stage the different types of essays. We can describe things, so it is a descriptive essay. We can tell a story, so it is a narrative essay. We can discuss or argue things, so it is what? An argumentative essay, and so on. So, what are the advantages of essay writing questions? These are open testing items. Okay, so they are what? Open testing items. They are not closed. There's no specific or one specific correct answer. Okay, when you give a title for your students to write about, each student will try to approach or to tackle or to deal the topic from his or her own point of view. Okay, according to his or her level in language, according to the vocabulary that he or she knows about language, structures that she or he knows about language. So there is no one correct or specific answer to these questions. That's why we call them what? Open testing items. Number two, they offer the students the greatest opportunity to construct their own responses. Okay, so there is much space in such questions for their students to reflect themselves, to reflect the way that they are thinking. Okay, to reflect their personality, their characters, their levels in language. It is a student who decides how to approach the question, you see, which ideas to include, how to organize these points, and which conclusions to make. That's why we say what? They are open testing items. They are the most useful forms for assessing higher order cognitive processes. So here, we are not after only recognizing, we are not after memorizing. We are after testing higher level of abilities in language, like analyzing, evaluating, summarizing, and synthesizing. And finally, they are easy to construct. To the disadvantages, you see, they are time consuming for students to answer. Because writing an essay, okay, you know that the essay is a long text that the student has to produce. Okay, the essay consists of different parts, and each part should tackle a different thing. Okay, a certain part of the ideas, a certain group of ideas that develop the title that you have given them. Okay, so here it will take long time from students to answer because they need to think, they need to organize their answers, to make an outline for these answers for their essays. Okay, and then they are going to to write a draft. After writing a draft, they have to check, reread again what they have written in order to check everything in organization, in language, and so on. Assessing these questions does not depend on content knowledge only. So when you as a teacher, when you come to score the answers of your students, you are not going only to check or score or grade these essays depending on the ideas that they have. Okay? No, you have to You have also to check their writing ability, the language that they have used. And here we are talking about what? About the mechanisms of writing. Spelling, punctuation, grammar, vocabulary. Okay? They are subjectively scored. So scoring the essays depends on what? The interpretation of the teacher. And here again, we are having problems of reliability. If the same teacher is scoring the same test 2 times or 3 times, you can see that in each time the teacher may give a different score. So this is intra-rate reliability. And if you give the same test to be corrected or to be scored by 2 teachers, here again you may have 2 different scores. Okay, because each teacher is going to score or grade the essay depending of his or her own criteria in scoring the essays. And here we have interrelate reliability. They are time consuming, okay, and exhausting in correcting, in scoring. That they say that for teachers, the scoring workload, you see, The scoring workload is the biggest disadvantage to using the essay question format. So what are the tips that we can give for language teachers in order to help them write good essay questions? Number one, make all the questions similar in level of difficulty. So if you are obliged, it is not recommended, but if you are obliged to give your students options, okay, in the essay question, for example, 2 titles or 3 titles, and they have to choose one of them to write an essay about, try your best to make these options or these 2 or 3 titles or topics similar in the level of difficulty, okay, in order not to make the students go for the easier ones. Write questions that force students to use higher order thinking skills. Okay, as we said, that one of the merits, one of the advantages of these questions is that they help students to think. So try to choose titles or to choose topics that motivate your students to think, to analyze, to argue, to discuss. Allow students enough space to write their answer. If it is your job or your responsibility as a teacher to provide your students with the answer sheets, with the papers, okay, with the sheets on which they have to write their answers, try to specify an enough space for them for the essay question, because they know, you know, as a teacher, that the essay needs a large space, okay, a space that is larger than the other questions. So you have to think about this when you want, or you have to put this in your mind when you prepare the answer sheets for your students. And at the same time, allow them or give them enough time, not only space, but enough time to answer such a question, because you see, you know that writing essays takes longer time than the other types of questions. Be specific to the amount or type of information you want in the answer. Sometimes, or some teachers may specify, for example, the number of words. For example, they say write between 150 to 200 words. So here you are specifying, you are helping your students in specifying the number of words that you want from them to use in writing their essays. Or you are talking, or you are telling them to talk about these things and things. Okay, for example, when you ask them to write a descriptive essay about a person who has influenced their life, you may, as a teacher, specify for them the kind of information that you want them to write about this person. Assess content selectively. So here, in order to be objective in correcting or scoring the essay, read the answers of your students carefully, okay, and try to check only the things that are related to the question. Sometimes students, when they write essays, they write different things, different pieces of information that cannot be or may not be related to the title, to the question. So here you should not punish them for these things, for these parts. No, check the parts that you find them related to the question and give them credit for these parts. And this is what we said, this is the partial credit. Share the scoring rubric with the students prior to the exam. Transparency will help decrease student anxiety. Okay, we know that students, they feel anxious, or they are afraid of the writing question, of the essay question. Okay, why? Because some students may say that whatever we write, we are not going to get an acceptable score. So they are going to be what? To be anxious, to feel afraid of to feel worried of their teachers scoring. So in order to try to help them uh, 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 overcome such a feeling of anxiety or feeling worried or being worried, you have to help them by telling them, okay, these are the criteria that I am going to check when I read your essays. Okay, so you put them or you discuss with them before the exam the elements that you are going to check and how much in their writing and how much of the score they are going to be specified for each one of them. So for example, you tell them that I'm going to check both what? Language, mechanisms of writing, and ideas. Okay? For language, for spelling, for grammar, for vocabulary, I will specify, for example, 5% of the score. For the mechanisms of writing, okay, I will specify 10%. Okay? For the ideas and the arrangement of the ideas, for coherence, unity, and so on, I will specify 15%, and so on. Okay? So here, when they are going to come to write their essays, they now they know what they should pay attention to, okay, when they write their essays. Okay, so with this we have finished the testing techniques that the teacher can use in making his or her communicative language test for his or her students. Okay, thank you.